And we are back on the build phase. I'm mrben, and today I am joined by not one but two guests to talk about an exciting new project in the Versus space. So let's welcome Matt to the show
Hey, what's up? This is Matt.
and his collaborator Joe. Also, welcome to the show.
What's up, y'all? Ben, thanks for having us.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
well, and
thank you
I'm
very much.
excited to have you guys in the community. As much as I love Versus and as much as I love doing this show, it makes me really excited every time I see new content creators show up making stuff about this game. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about that. But before we get there, I want to give an opportunity to kind of let people in the Versus community know where you're coming from and kind of what brought you to Versus. So, Matt, I'll start with you. If you want to talk about some of maybe like your early gaming experiences and what actually brought you to the game of Versus.
Okay, yeah. So I started playing. So I'm a high school teacher, and the kids in high school will introduce me to Magic, and so I've been playing Magic for a number of years, and kind of moved from Magic to Final Fantasy TCG, and got really sort of deep in that for a few years, pretty much towards the beginning of the game, and at some point, I kind of backed off the Final Fantasy a little bit, and at the same time as I was kind of easing out of that, I was just looking into other things, and I saw I'm a big Hellboy fan. Like the Mike Mignola Hellboy universe is kind of my thing when it comes to comics.
Absolutely.
And I saw that there was a Hellboy versus system game, and I had, I think, just come off the back of having bought like a Kickstarter Hellboy board game, which is really awesome. And so I picked up this Hellboy versus system game, and I didn't know it was the old versus. I played it a little bit with one of my friends and had a good time. And I did think it was a little bit convoluted, but it was fun. I think maybe the rule book was actually harder to understand than the actual game itself, let's say. So I was just kind of digging for more, like what else is there in this versus game? And I was on Amazon and I saw they had like MCU stuff. And I wasn't a big MCU fan, but my wife was at the time, and I was like, okay, this is anything I can do to get to lure my wife into playing card games with me, I will do it. So,
Bro.
yeah, so that's so we started playing MCU, and I was like, oh, okay, this is like a new version of the game, and I liked it. I liked how streamlined it was compared to the original game. I mean, I liked the original, but I felt like this was a lot more like tightly built, let's say, and just kind of went from there. That's what
So,
got me there.
as a player of old Versus, a diehard, hardcore fan of the old game, the Hellboy rulebook is actually the single best to learn how to play that was put out throughout the whole lifespan of that game. So
Agreed.
it hurts my
That's
heart a little
scary,
bit.
man. That is really scary because that rule book makes no sense. I think it
You know,
actually had. I think it had a little pamphlet actually where it like showed that was on. Did it have a little pamphlet on the side that it showed like some like sample turns as well? If it did, I
mhm.
think that was a little more clear. I might be thinking about
Yeah.
the board game though. But like the core, like the thick rule book, man, that was rough.
Yeah, if you compare it to those like starter sets, like the X-Men and the Batman one and the Fantastic Four, like those things were a mess in terms
Okay.
of learning the game.
Oh
This the
man.
Hellboy one is way better.
It hurts my heart to acknowledge that maybe some of the criticisms about how Old Versus was too complex as a game may have been more accurate than I even still to this day. I don't totally want to acknowledge that. I loved
Yeah.
Old Versus, but it's hard to argue against the number of people who have similar stories where it's like, oh, I discovered this and I really wanted to learn how to play it. And it was extremely hard to learn how to play from the how to play guide that came with the product I purchased. So, certainly a weak point in the old game, without a doubt.
Sure, for sure.
Well, hey,
Yeah,
Joe,
yeah.
let's
The artwork
take
was
it.
on point
Oh,
though,
sorry.
man. The artwork
True.
was on point.
One of the things I actually liked about old verses and continue to like, well, two things. Old versus cards featured the artist's name on the card. I wish they did that
Yes.
in new verses. Shout out to the Deconstruct the Universe guys who actually look that stuff up for us some
Yeah.
significant
Love
percentage of the
that.
time. And also, most of the cards throughout most of the game were original art. Now, I understand why we use recycled comic art in new verses. Like, original art is a lot more expensive. I get it, but man, do I like original art.
Yeah. It's nice when we
Yep.
can get it occasionally, but yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. Well, Joe, let's take it to you. Walk us through some of your early experiences with gaming and what brought you to the Versus 2 PCG.
Yeah, I didn't really do a lot of gaming prior to Versus System. I played a little D&D, and I was always sort of like on the fringes of like gaming was interesting, but I really didn't have like the ecosystem for it. And then I was working at Emerald City Comics in Clearwater, and one of the employees there, Justin Walner, was sorting his Versus System cards, his original ones, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just sorting my decks." And I was like, "For what?" And he had a Justice League International deck, and I was like, "Hold on a second, what is this Justice League International?" Because I love the Justice League International. That's like my bread and butter for comics, and that's kind of where it began. They have Emerald City has like a really big versus scene there, and to this day it still persists. Shout out to Chris and all those guys. And that was kind of my introduction to versus, and then I moved away, and I sort of there wasn't a versus scene where I'm at now in San Francisco, and the game died between then and that anyway. Then it came back in 2015, and I pretty much bought everything until then. And then I just sort of played like either with my girlfriend or kind of by myself or like occasional web games. And then it just kind of I finally said, you know what? Let's get a local scene going here because I'm tired of this. I want more people here to play it. So I kind of just hung on the fringes for a while until the game came back, and I was very excited. And here I am.
Did you play in tournaments at that store in Clearwater during the lifespan of the original Versus system?
Yeah, we never did. I don't. By the time I got into it, I want to say it was like 2008. I don't think we did any like sanctioned tournaments then. We definitely
Oh,
would do like local things, but I don't think we had any like official like. I think by then they stopped doing the kind of big money events. But we definitely did some like local stuff, and we had like draft events and things like that, and it was pretty fun.
I definitely played in a locals there in like '06, '07. I lived in
Oh,
Daytona at the time,
oh wow, okay.
but by
You might it
'08,
might have
I was
just
back in
I might
Iowa.
have Yeah, I might have just missed you, honestly, because I think I probably started there like right after that, maybe
So
2008. I
weird how
forget
it's
when,
like
but
such a small world, you know?
I know it really is. Yeah, it's why, and I love that like they're still going strong with it, like that. It's so like it's good for me to see because I just sort of figured like most of our group had kind of moved on, just for whatever reason, moving other places, and like the game had died, and then like the fact that they were able to kind of put it back together is just kind of a testament to the strong communities this game can have.
Sure. Well, once you discovered Versus 2 PCG, walk us through a little bit. What were some of your first impressions on the game? What were maybe some main characters that spoke to you early? And what got you excited enough that you wanted to actually create content for the game? And I'll throw this to Joe first this time.
So very initial, I very distinctly remember that period where it was like versus might come back, and they did the living card game thing, and I was
Oh
just
no.
like, oh my god, bring this back, yeah, yeah. And like I remember even prior to that, there was like this Marvel Superstars thing they were trying to put out. Do you anyone remember that? It was going to be like an MCU focused card game, and I think it quickly got shelved, but that was sort of supposed to be the replacement. And then they started showing off versus, and it was just those Origins cards, and I was like, whatever, I don't care, bring it back. And then they started showing off like the main character mechanic and like the differences in plot twists. And I was actually sort of like, I wasn't bummed. I was kind of like, okay, this is very different. I don't quite get why this is doing it, but I like that maybe they're streamlining some things. But I wasn't like, I wanted my old systems back. I wanted the thing that I knew.
Hmm.
And then after playing it, I got pretty into it. I was like, okay, I get it. This is the new, once I adjusted the rules and got used to like, you can't play your plot twist, from the resource row anymore and that kind of stuff. But, um, and then it just sort of like I just got really into it. Like, okay, this is the game. It's got enough of the core things I like about Versus System, and I like the sort of flavor they're doing with this. I actually really like how much more streamlined some of the rules are. Um, and then getting to a point where like we want to create content. Matt and Hams and I were just kind of just talking about like there's a lot of great content creators. You guys like Apex, Bert, and like just there's so many, and we just wanted to kind of add our sort of voice and our thoughts and our expertise and our sort of like region, I guess, to the mix. Because I feel like we have a very just different voice than like I'm really big on like I want to have content that is like very educational and like teaches the game and like is less focused on the deck building side and like Matt wants to do deck building things like that. So like it just kind of was like, well, we have a wide range of things to offer, and it kind of just went from there.
Well, Matt, let's give you a chance to get in on this. What were some of the early impressions that you had of Versus, and kind of walk us through your early impressions of the game to what inspired you to the point to start putting stuff out there in the world for everybody?
Yeah. So early impressions, I liked. I think the thing that caught my attention the most is like it felt so familiar in terms of like how to go through the game. I'm kind of a sucker for like any of these games that have a strong magic feel, I guess, probably because I can catch on quickly. And this game, it's very different than Magic. You can't just be like, oh, this is, just like Magic, right? But like, if you know how to play games that are like in that vein, you can kind of jump in and within a few minutes, like, oh, I know how to go through a turn, right? And in the end, like the ability to play a game quickly because you can, move through it. For me, is like really important because it's like high engagement, right? So, my first impression of the game was like, oh, I can move through this game pretty quickly because I feel like I know the basics right out the gate. And obviously there's a deep level complexity that like I'm still, learning, right? And some of it I might still be struggling to learn, but
Me too.
just the initial thing was it was comfortable to jump into, extremely comfortable. It felt good, right? Um, and I think one thing that caught my attention was the how combat focused it is, right? And I talk to my friend David about this all the time. It's like sometimes you just want to put guys down and you just want to smash them immediately, right? So I mean, there are a variety of strategies, and not not all the decks I like to play are necessarily the decks that just turn sideways, but at the core of the game, because you can attack the turn your dudes come out. It's like I'm just gonna play a dude and then I'm gonna hit you with it, right? So I think there's a certain amount of immediacy that this game has that really caught my attention initially. And the no stack or no reverse stack element, I think was like one of the things that initially like caught me off guard a little bit, right? Because I'm so used to like you can play something both in Magic and in Final Fantasy. It's like you can play something and then your opponent can respond and put it on top, right, and have theirs resolve first. And here there wasn't that. And so, like initially, I think that was something that caught me a little bit off guard. But I think it's a feature for the most part. I think it's a feature of the game, not a bug. And I do like how it gives interactions a very unique feel, right? You have to learn to deal with things in different ways because there's not a stack. And you have to, go through a turn maybe a little bit differently than you would in these other games because you can swing immediately. And so, all these elements kind of just made it, cool to me because it was like, yeah, I like the fast-paced gameplay. I like the fact that almost every card is removal in a way, right? When every supporting character can be used to immediately come down and hit something and maybe take it out the turn it comes down. Everything is kind of removal, right? And I kind of like removal-based decks in a lot of games. So yeah, those are some of my initial impressions. Some of my early favorite mains. I think one of the early sets I got after the main box was the Shield versus Hydra, and I just loved a lot of stuff from there, and I still do. Madam Hydra was one of the first ones to catch my attention, and she's still to this day one of my favorite main characters to play. I think she's a ton of fun, and just turboing through a whole deck full of one drops, I think is really cool, and yeah, so she caught my attention pretty early on. Thor. I came into the game after Thor was kind of a thing, and so I was able to come in and enjoy like I guess playing Thor more or less right out the gates without it being like this is like the card that everyone's sick of seeing. Because I didn't have a local scene at that time, so me and none of the guys had ever gone through the Trinity time period, right? So he was definitely one of my early favorite mains as well. I love being able to lightning bolt anything. Was cool. So yeah, those are some of the early mains that I really liked as well, and still enjoy. And I guess to get to the third question, why do the channel? Um, I realized that on YouTube, if someone goes to look for verses, like there's not a lot. Um, most of the versus content we have is like podcasts, and they're awesome. Like we have a ton of great versus podcasts. Like I feel like we're really blessed with an abundance in the podcast area. On the YouTube area, there's not really a lot, right? Like there used to be like a Philippines channel that was really cool, but I think it's kind of not really produced content as of late. Um, I just looked like a couple days ago for like versus decks on YouTube just to kind of see what was refresh my mind on what else was out there. And I realized like in the last year, it looks like if I'm not wrong, like versus TV from Kieran Cook. Shout out to Kieran. I think he's the only guy that produced like deck videos in the entire last year, in the entire last month on YouTube specifically, right? Some of the podcasters have definitely done that kind of stuff. And like the way that I learn is by like looking at decks, right? Like you learn through gameplay, but it's kind of like the same in a way because when you see someone else play a deck, you're getting a feel of okay, what's good in the early game, what's good in the mid game, what's good in the late game, right? And like you kind of by seeing others and playing with them, you get to like learn about cards, learn about interactions, etc. But like that's like a really slow process, and unless you have like a super dedicated like testing group or something like that, you're only going to be able to like have that with like maybe with a small percentage of the overall cards that are out there. So like, for me, like the way that I've always loved to learn from the beginning was like just look at decks, right? Get an idea of like what are the ratios? What are what are some of the highly played um characters like stats look like? And then compare them to others, right? You kind of get like a benchmark if you just look at a bunch of decks. You start to get a benchmark for like what like a good value card looks like in general, right? Obviously, there's a lot of specifics, and you can really go off the deep end with that. But it gives you a general sense. And I just, that's the kind of stuff I really love is looking at decks. And even if I don't copy a list verbatim, I just look at it and I might see like a small package that's in it that I like, or it might inspire me to build something in a certain way because of what I saw, not necessarily using the exact same thing. So anyways, not to go too long on that, but I'm into looking at decks, and I saw there's not like a lot that's going on YouTube there, and people that are coming into the game, they're gonna like the first place that they're gonna go before they know there's a Discord, before they know that there's these other places, they're gonna jump like on YouTube or on Google, and they're gonna look for it. And I think I kind of like told myself right out the gate, like, what I want is like to like let's build some decks and let's put them on YouTube. We might not necessarily be like the best deck builders in the game, but like if we get our ideas out there, then maybe other people will like jump in too. Sometimes you get like a few guys doing something, and then that kind of gets other people to be like, oh, that's cool, we could be doing that too. So I had this idea like that, like, as far as what I bring to the table, the part, my part of our crew, let's say, is like try to bring some decks, try to make the aesthetics like look good and stuff, like let's do like a little bit of music, let's do some visuals and stuff. I don't know how to do anything fancy technologically, right? But I'm like, okay, like when people jump on YouTube and are looking for decks, I want them to jump in and see something from us that looks cool, right? And that has sound and movement and all this kind of stuff. And ultimately, if we can get like, if that can look cool to people, and if other people can be inspired to like jump on YouTube and use that as a platform also for doing decks, like eventually, like I'll jump out of here. Like my goal is kind of like can I get myself fired from here by dragging some people that are better than me at this onto this platform and sort of getting this going, right? And it's been fun. I really appreciate Joe and Hampton have been big collaborators and really help make this work. And like Joe was saying, he brings something very different than what I bring. He's really into like the how do you play the game and information about the game and this sort of thing. And Hampton, who's not here with us at the moment, he's he's into like gameplay in the future. Hopefully we'll get some gameplay video out there and stuff as well. And so we'll have a little bit of everything. And it's been a really cool team, a really supportive team. And I've had a lot of fun doing it. Sorry, that was so long-winded.
No, this is great. This is great. This is why you're here, man. This is what we want to talk about. And I fully agree with you that the lack of YouTube content is a weak area in our game. Like I wish there was more of that happening. C-Stacks was a great credit to the community in that area,
Oh
but
yeah.
he's more or less retired at this point, I think, from
Yeah.
content
No,
creation.
I miss his channel. That was one of the
Yeah.
very first channels that
Yeah.
caught me. I think when I jumped in the game before I knew about the Discord and even the Facebook and all this, I was on Stack's channel and I went from the very beginning and went through all his videos. Like it was awesome.
Yeah, I liked watching the openings. That was a fun piece of content that I feel like it's like it's hard to do now because I feel like it takes us so long to get stuff and I want to buy things locally, so it's like there's no point in
Hmm.
doing it. If it takes you a month to get the product, but like that is the kind of content that like these kinds of games need to really thrive. And like one thing I really felt like there was a dearth of is like this sort of like not necessarily teaching the mechanics of the game, but teaching the kind of like esoteric, like the kind of questions that people ask when they first try to get into a game, like how do I get into it? What do I buy? Like what is league play? Like these things that like you kind of know, it becomes this like institutional knowledge, but like isn't readily available. And that's the kind of stuff I want to like make more accessible. If someone goes to YouTube, they can search the game and find those things and then just have access to, because we have so many good community resources. Like, oh my god, like the pocket verses and the stuff on
Oh yeah.
TCG browser, like, and then the Reddit, the subreddit, like our community members go above and beyond in providing like those resources. But it's a lot of things that coming from a lot of different sources to point people to, and it can get very overwhelming. And like, so having that stuff sort of centralized on YouTube, like I love being able to point to that. Like Justin, community member Justin, who made that how to play video. It's like the best how to play video for this game I've ever seen. And
It's
I like
very
we link
good.
that in like we link that in our description, and it's like the first thing on every post we have, because it's just like, just go here, look at this, this is perfect. And like it's the first thing I always point people to when they ask how to play.
So there were a couple things there that you name dropped that I Pocket Versus, shout out to Obs for his work on that, and the Reddit is
Absolutely.
largely Danny and Jason, so shout out to those guys as well.
Yeah.
There was one other thing Matt said that I wanted to agree with, in that I think looking at deck lists is useful, and sort of the downstream consequences of agreeing with that is that I also agree with you that Vern is wrong. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh no, let's not turn this into that.
I listened to that the other day. Yeah,
Yo,
that
yo.
was a good discussion. Yeah.
Okay. So check this out, though. Check this out. We got some content from Vern coming to the channel, so we're not gonna say we're not gonna say we disagree, because he's also helping support in this area as well, right?
Yeah,
So,
Vern is great. Like, we
yeah.
sometimes
No, this is
spar a little
fun.
bit,
This is
but it's
fun.
all in love.
Sure,
So
sure.
a lot of the reason I largely do a show by myself is I had other podcast endeavors where I had partners, I had people that I worked with, and it was a struggle, both like scheduling, creative vision, just there's a lot of uh, points within the creative process where there can be like friction or disagreement created. So I'm going to throw this to you, Joe. Maybe talk a little bit about what it's like to work with multiple collaborators, and are there any time like challenges that you guys have had in working on these videos that you've like had to kind of pull together to figure out how to overcome?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we've got a nice kind of casual workflow going. Like I also did a podcast in the past with a couple people, and like scheduling was the hardest part. It's a nightmare. Like when you're adults with jobs, it is hard to get people on the same like time and schedule, and to set aside an hour or two, on top of research, whatever else you need to do. And like I think it helps that we're all like local to each other, and that makes it easy. And we've got a nice, like we've been able to develop a nice consistent workflow in terms of like everyone can sort of make the videos on their own. We're not super dependent on anyone else. Like, I'll assist with some things with like a thumbnail or like descriptions, and like we'll kind of proofread each other's videos to make sure things are okay when we have time. And I think the hardest parts have just been sort of like, lining up, schedules and getting around like, like just life things that happen. And but Hampton and Matt have been great. Like everyone's very relaxed and chill. Like we know this isn't like, the end of the world if we're, missing like a release date, and we want to be consistent, but like, we get things out when they're done, and we go from there. Everyone's pretty agreeable about, things that we put out. And I think the hardest part is just sort of like putting the stuff together. Like it takes time to, record audio and put the deck list together with images, and put that into a video, and just the production aspects of it can be sometimes a little pain, but it's nothing too crazy. And it's just, we've definitely reached the point, I think, now where we're starting to get on a more consistent like schedule, and figured out kind of the nuts and bolts, and the kind of things you need to do to make a channel kind of grow consistently.
So I probably should have started with this question, but Matt, do you want to tell us the name of your channel and give us maybe a synopsis of what people can expect to find there?
Yeah.
We
So our
really
channel.
buried the lead there.
Yeah, for
Let's
sure.
move this to the beginning. We can cut and paste this to the beginning
I
of the
might
show.
have to do some editing magic on this one.
Yeah, no, I mean it's no big deal. Yeah, so the name of the channel is Recover and Ready. I think Joe, was that you or Hampton that came up with it? I remember I threw a bunch of names out and mine were like kind of trash, and this was the good one. So we
I
picked
want
this
to say
one.
that was Hampton. I couldn't remember. We have a document somewhere that was like a list of names, but I want to say that was Hampton. I'm going to give him credit for it. I'm pretty sure it
Yeah,
was.
I think you're right. Yeah, so we're Recover and Ready, and I think that our overall goal for the YouTube channel is just one to get a lot of versus content on YouTube, make it more accessible. Try to have some resources there to grow the community and have people just find stuff when they're looking for stuff. And ultimately, I suspect that the majority of our content is going to revolve around probably two main things, and hopefully moving into a third and making that a big part of it as well. The two main things being the deck, I guess you could say deck profile side of it, as well as the things that are like about what I would call like about the game series, right?
Mhm.
Like how, what products are should you start off with? What are basic gameplay mechanics? These kind of things. So
Yeah.
I think that those are probably going to be the main pillars of the channel, and hopefully getting some gameplay videos as well. And that's something that I'm kind of excited about because it's just fun to play games with your friends online and stuff. And
Yeah.
hopefully we can jam some games. And since Hampton is the one I think is sort of really into that, maybe we'll jam some games and then he'll go ahead and do the magic. And so I just show up and play. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Grow
that's
the community. Yeah.
Joe, would you
Grow the
add
game.
anything? That's my synopsis more or less.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think ultimately, I want to see the game grow. It's a great game. It's still so niche and underserved, and I want to see this game get bigger. I want to see like our great community members and all the content they make it get bigger. I want every channel to have 3,000 plus subscribers. I want the Discord blowing up. Like, I want to see this game like hit the kind of audience I think it really deserves. And like, we have so many people that put so much hard work into growing this game, and I just want to see that rewarded. And like, I just like ultimately that's like what I care about. Is like get as many eyes as we can on this thing, and just hopefully that expands out and like extend the life of the game. Really, like so again, this game's been out for what 7-8 years now at this point. Like it
August of
feels like so,
2015.
yeah, like that's a long time. And sometimes I wonder like is it too long? Like it's kind of scary to think about. So like I just anything we can do, and thankfully the game's in the best place it's ever been, I think, so it's not really a concern. But anything we can do to help it grow it and grow this community, I think is just really important.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of wants to be able to just show up at their locals and there be people there to play with, or be
That's
like,
like
hey,
that's the goal.
I want to be able to show up, or sorry, I want to be able to choose not to show up if on a random day. No, I mean you would choose to show up because you love to play, but I'm not saying you would want to choose not to show up. But what I am saying is I want to be able to be like, you know what, something's going on with my family today. I can't show up, and I know that my community is not going to fall apart,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think that's the dream that everyone wants. Is like they can always assume that they're going to try to be at their locals as much as possible to be a part of it, but that if they don't show up suddenly, that the game, life goes on and the game stays strong and that kind of thing. So yeah, just trying to build the community more as much as we can.
Yeah, I wish there was more of a strong local presence that wasn't directly hinging on whether or not I personally am putting together the event. Like sometimes I just want
Same.
to be a
Yeah.
player, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Um,
we're at a point like we're definitely growing, but we're at a point where like if I don't go, it's not happening. It's just
yeah.
like, oh man,
Right.
And I
we'll
don't
get there.
mind
We'll
putting
get
in
there.
that work like some of the time, but there's also some days where it's like, hey, I'm just gonna stay home and hang out with my kids today, and that means the
Yeah,
event doesn't happen, and that's kind of a bummer.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It takes time, but I think every scene has the potential. Like I encourage anyone listening to this, if you have like one or two people even, and you have a store that's willing to support, like you can put that work in and like you can build something out. You don't need a ton of people. You can get it going with 4 to 6. Like that can be enough to start building that community, and like it's not impossible. Like the hardest part I think is finding a store. I think if you can do that, I think the rest can come into place for sure. It's like, if you build it, they will come.
The game
Yeah,
does a good job of selling itself because it's such a good game. So as long
Yeah,
as you can
absolutely,
find
for
like
sure.
the hook, like, oh, you like Buffy, oh, you like the MCU, it like as long as you can find the hook, the game can take care of everything else because of how solid it is.
Agreed. Yeah, it does so much of that work for you.
I have like this dream of like playing versus of getting like comic book stores to really latch onto versus. I know like game stores is usually like where we meet up, right? But I think that there's something unique about this game that speaks to maybe the comic book, or that could speak to the comic book crowd more. Um, and I just like dream of like, what if we had all our like tournaments like at comic book stores, and like prize pool was like issues and stuff like that. I don't
Sure.
know, man. Like I feel like there's a lot of a lot of possible, a lot of things that comic book stores could do with this game that's unique. So because the hardest thing about I think about the game sometimes and getting people in is a lot of the people that in some ways are you would think are most easily attracted to jump into the game are other people that play TCGs. But like that's like also a really hard sell, right? Because people spend a lot of money on the TCG that they're currently in.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's like, oh man, I'd love to pick up another game, but I'm so, deep in this one that it's kind of hard to add additional ones, right? And so there I think that there is a lot of potential in this game to get outside of the TCG crowd, whether it's the board game crowd, the comic book crowd, or just your general like pop culture nerd crowd. Because this is so all the characters that we love, right?
I mean, that was always the draw in the original game. Like, I remember, it was like a lot of it has weird marketing where sometimes it was called the Marvel trading card game, and like you would have like Marvel Legends figures that came with a comic that would have an exclusive like alternate art versus card, and you would see ads for versus system within comic books. And I mean, I learned to play it in a comic book store that really wasn't a gaming store. It was like a
Yeah.
comic book store that sold gaming things, and I think now that shifted a bit, but that was definitely the drive initially for sure. And I think the comic book landscape has just evolved so much since then. It's kind of really changed.
Yeah.
Joe, are there any cards that you are really excited to have in your deck now or that are going to release on the horizon? Like what are you looking forward to or excited about playing within the game?
I really cannot wait for the Cosmic Power arc. I love the Fantastic Four, and I really liked that set. It's funny. I don't think it's the most beginner friendly set, but I do love that set. It really captures the like wackiness of the Fantastic Four, and I like that this Cosmic Power stuff is kind of making the Civil War arc relevant again. Because that's also a set that I really like. It's a great starting point set, and I sort of always had the impression that it was like a one and done kind of set. So I like that they're going back and they're adding dual teams, and it seemed like based on some of the kind of like sort of like preliminary copy we've seen for that set, it's like there's going to be room for more older teams and like revisits, so we may get some new versions of older characters. And like I know I'm excited the potential, like maybe we'll get a new Ghost Rider or something who's like both Fantastic Four and Defenders. Like I love that that set seems to really capture that kind of like rebirth, and that kind of like gives the Fantastic Four like another chance to shine. And I'm just very excited for that set. I think boys will be cool. AEW I think be cool. Not really for me, but I'm gonna pick it up. But uh, anytime they do the comic stuff is usually where I'm into. I tend to prefer illustrated, just for really not even like there's really no like solid reason other than just aesthetically. I think I just like the way it looks better. So I'm pretty excited. Marvel Zombies apparently that's coming out. That seems like it'll be really fun. I'm really curious to see what they do with that and what those mechanics end up being. Those are probably my top right now.
How about you, Matt? What are you excited to be playing or excited to see on the horizon within the game?
Yo, okay, so I think everyone's got their mind on this new Reed Richards, So I mean, I don't really know what to say other than like he looks really good and really fun. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about this new arc, this the Cosmic Family arc and stuff. And Joe has sold me on the idea that I can like dream big and hope to get characters from a bunch of teams. out there, and I'm dreaming about this that Donny Cates Thor Herald of Galactus. Can that be a thing? I hope so. I don't know if you guys have read that comic or not, but so yeah, definitely excited about the cosmic arc thing, and what I'm excited to play right now. I've recently played against Hampton, and he was playing Doctor Strange against me, and Doctor Strange was a main character that I was really enjoying, like when that came out, and he inspired me to like build Doctor Strange again. So like that's a little something that I'm looking forward to is playing some more Doctor Strange, revisiting it and seeing what new tools I'm gonna try out that I didn't try out the first time around. And I've been working on a lot of decks for one of my buddies out here who doesn't have as much time and is trying different things, trying things to what works with some of his favorite main characters. And he's a big X-23 fan, so I've been playing X-23 a bunch lately. And been having a lot of fun with her. And that new X-Men plot twist, the Defend the Weak, seems to go really cool with her because you go from having like 3 defense to 9 defense out of nowhere when you get attacked. If you're playing that plot twist.
Dirty.
So yeah, there's some cool things with with her that just been having fun with and stuff. And yeah, just looking forward to getting as many games as possible. Looking forward to this Friday night. Gonna be meeting up with a friend to play, and I hope you guys all having fun playing as well. Ben, what are you excited about?
Boys, I'm excited about Billy Butcher. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's listened to the show has heard me go on about what a big fan of the boys comic I was, and then I turned into a fan of the show. So this getting brought to Versus is like literally a dream I've had 8 years in the making, and it's coming true this year, and I could not be more thrilled. I also really like playing with the Mortal Kombat cards. I've been like obsessed with Liu Kang, and messing around with him. Uh, that's it's almost embarrassing how quickly I like pushed all the X-Men stuff off my testing bench once Mortal Kombat came out. And I still really like those
That's funny,
cards, but
man.
I am not playing with them because
Yeah,
I'm all in on photographic right now.
Mortal Kombat is very good. That's a great set. I haven't played with as much as I want to, actually. I keep like just not doing it for whatever reason, and it's like I've only built like just out of the box so far. I haven't really like explored like really tweaking it and making them notches. But yeah, Liu Kang is really good. He's really good.
So I've never been like a big fan of the IP generally, let's say. But I will say that it's an extremely well designed set. I've been playing it a decent amount because one of my good friends, John, over here in my locals, is like really into it, and so trying to get some thematic games and stuff. And I just feel like within that box itself, um, like I feel like there's a lot of tools, like it's just got so many tools that solve like common problems. The ability to put direct wounds on dudes, with stuff like Kodokan, or the ability to get to the back row, or even Kitana, right, shutting off abilities. Like playing with the box, I felt like you don't really feel like at a loss of like, oh man, like there's nothing I can do, right? There's like tools to pretty much do what you want to do. And I really am enjoying how the last couple boxes, I feel like compared to historically, we have an extremely high amount of main characters that you can feel like you can jump in and play and not just get like totally run over, if that makes sense. Like opening up like the new X-Men box and the Mortal Kombat box. I look at them and I'm like, man, there's like 3/4 of these main characters that I could feel like I could jump in, I could build something and do reasonably well with, right? Not necessarily saying that everyone's going to be the meta picks or something like that, but lots and lots of good playable characters. Whereas like if you go back historically in the past, there's some boxes that you're like, there's 1 or 2 main characters here, and the rest of them will kind of put them to the side, right? Here I'm feeling like really excited to kind of try everyone. So that's been a lot of fun. I think Mortal Kombat's extremely well balanced set.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
feels like the trend has been like there's like 2 or 3 like really powerful like pick up and play strong main characters. And then there's like two or three like kind of mid tier. These are kind of cool and they do fun things. And then there's like two or three like toolbox ones where like you kind of need all these other sets to make them strong and work. But if you can get them to work, maybe the payoff is a lot better. But they really need more kind of like incentive to purchase more things from the game. It kind of seems like they've been doing that very consistently through the sets. I think it's like a good strat for the most part. It appeals to sort of all levels of potential audience.
I like
Agreed.
Bert's focus on reasonable level up conditions. I don't so much
Yes.
care about the like overall power level of the main characters. I don't so much care about their play patterns. I mean, I agree with you. I like that they have give us a variety of different things that'll appeal to different types of players. But the one thing that appeals to all players is reasonable level up conditions. And I feel like Mortal Kombat is a great example where basically every character's level up is reasonable with maybe one glaring example, counter example.
Well,
Yeah.
he doesn't need to get over here.
Yeah.
Wink. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no more like kid kaijus running around, right? There's actually like things that are fun to kind of in like you can do pretty consistently for the most part.
Yeah, I don't think anybody like you build Kid Kaiju probably 0 times, but maybe once, and you play it until you get it to work once, and then you take it apart and that card collects dust. I just don't believe that there's anybody out there who's really like grinding the whetstone trying to sharpen their Kid Kaiju deck because he's just not reasonable.
Yeah, I'm a guy that will do that. I have been trying to like do a consistent Green Goblin for I don't know how long. Like I will find the most trash card and obsess over it, and like even that card, I was like, this is just not. You can't do it. It's damn near impossible. And no matter what they put out since then, it's just not going to happen. There's just no way.
I mean, my longest running pet project MC was Sister Grimm, and it's her power
Oh,
level
that's a
is
fun one.
potentially debatable. There's certainly things you can do that hose her pretty badly. Uh,
Yeah.
well, that brings me to the conclusion of everything that I had on my notes that I wanted to get to with you guys, but I definitely want to give you a chance to plug, promote, shout out anything you want to here at the end. So, Joe, I'll give you the mic first. The floor is yours for anything you want to add.
Yeah, like I said, check us on YouTube, Recover and Ready. We just put out a video on the main character Death. It's my first deck guide. I tend not to make a ton of those, but I've been really on that main character recently because I think she's very fun. She's very wacky. And I put out like kind of a sample deck for that. Just check it out. We try to do new videos every once a week, typically Thursdays or Fridays. But yeah, other than that, check them out. If you're ever in the San Francisco Bay Area, I host games down at the Game Parlor, great gaming cafe. So hit me up on Discord or hit us up on Discord's on the Game Parlor Discord server, and we'll get that going.
Hand it over to you, Matt. Do you have anything you want to plug, promote, shout out, mention here at the end of the show?
Yeah, for sure. First and foremost, there's this channel called The Build Phase. I want to shout them out. There's a guy named Ben there doing real good work. Ben, yo, I just want to say I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
It's really cool for you
Yeah,
to invite us
thank you so
on.
much for taking the time and having us on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, for reals. Yours was like one of the first. I think you were probably the first podcast that I found in this game. And same thing, like I start from the oldest episode, I went all the way through, and really enjoyed your channel and I appreciate you, supporting us as well. I want to shout out the Plot Twisters, another new channel. They're really cool. I just listened to their first couple episodes. Hopefully you guys can all check them out and help grow their channel as well. All the San Francisco and the Solano County crews up here in Northern California. I hope that you guys, some of you guys can get a chance to come out here to Northern California and play with us sometime. In fact, I hope I'm not overstepping and I hope my wife doesn't mind, but we do occasionally at my place, maybe once a quarter or something like that. We do backyard barbecue battles here at my place, and it's not necessarily huge. People can't expect to come out and get huge prizes like thousands of dollars or anything. But if someone's feeling inspired and they want a weekend where they can come in and play versus and barbecue with us or whatever in my backyard, hit me up and we'll try to keep you in the loop when that stuff's going on. I think other than that, just want to say thanks again for having us on, and hope people enjoy our videos, warts and all. And thanks for your patience with us as we're learning how to do it. Definitely, we're new at this, but I think we're hopefully getting better little by little, and we're happy to put out content there for you guys, and excited to see the content that you guys are all putting out as well.
Well, I also appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to come sit down, talk about what you're working on here and the contribution you're making to the Versus community. So the appreciation is definitely mutual. And there, I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up. So until next time, go win some games.